Oh, they're fighting. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about New York Governor Kathy Hochul having a back and forth with New York City Mayor Eric Adams. And to be specific, it's Kathy Hochul's lawyer having a back and forth with Eric Adams. And the issue is the whole migrant crisis. Now, we all know that New York City is being inundated with these asylum seekers, illegal aliens, migrants, whatever you want to call them. They're being inundated. They said they've had over 100,000 of them pour into the city ever since the beginning of this so-called crisis at the southern border. You know, the busloads being sent by different governors. I think maybe DeSantis in Florida, Abbott in Texas, they're being sent there. Now, my thing is, if you were an advocate of illegal aliens coming into the country, no border wall, then it shouldn't really be a big deal that that's happening. You should welcome them into your city, right? Or do you just want them to be down there in Texas and have them deal with it? You want the open border, but you don't want to deal with the consequences. That's hypocritical, but I digress. So the lawyer for Kathy Hochul is saying, hey, Eric Adams, you're not doing a good job. You're dropping the ball. And there's a whole letter, like a 4-page or many more page letter that details the things that Eric Adams is not doing. And before I go any further, let's go ahead and get into the news clip. I will link to the clip in the description box. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Developing story, Mayor Adams' handling of the migrant crisis called into question in the harshest terms by a lawyer representing Governor Kathy Hochul. Now, the lawyer sent a scathing letter to a judge overseeing the city's compliance with rights to shelter laws. CBS News political reporter Marsha Kramer is in the newsroom with the very latest for us. Marsha?
Now, before she begins, the letter is crazy. If I could find the full letter so you can read it, I will link to it in the box.
Well, Chris, so much for Kumbaya, the pressures of dealing with the burgeoning asylum seeker crisis, and who's responsible for what, have Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul bickering like, well, former Governor Andrew Cuomo and former Mayor Bill de Blasio.
That voice is something else. Shout out to her.
It's not pretty. The finger-pointing has started, with Mayor Adams struggling to find ways to cope with more than 100,000 asylum seekers and demanding more help from the state. Governor Hochul responds by insisting she's doing everything she can, and it's the mayor whose management of the crisis should be called into question. A letter sent to the judge in a right-to-shelter case accuses the mayor of being slow to act, ignoring suggestions early on to set up large shelters in tents.
Where are you going to put tents in New York City? Are you going to be able to put a tent right there, like Manhattan, Fifth Avenue? Like, where you can put the tents at?
Being slow to submit receipts for state reimbursements, ignoring state offers for shelter sites that could house up to 3,000 migrants, failing to use a $25 million state resettlement program for 1,250 households.
Now, that's something right there. So if you were offered money and you didn't use it, the question is, why? That's a good question.
Failing to use $10 million in state funds for programs to help migrants get asylum and work authorization, and allowing hundreds of migrants to sleep on the street outside the Roosevelt Hotel when beds were available elsewhere.
Now, some of this, okay, it's easier said than done. Now, if the hotel was full and it was a migrant hotel, but beds were available elsewhere, where were the beds available? See, it's bad enough you already get the Roosevelt and you're tearing that down. If beds are available in some of the more tourist-filled locations, I would not want to be right next door to some illegal aliens from who knows where with who knows what going on. Okay, I don't want to be next to them, keeping it all the way real. I don't care what color they are. That can be black, white, Puerto Rican candy stripe. Doesn't really matter to me. So some of these things that Eric Adams did, I don't blame him. I mean, ultimately, to zoom out here, the so-called migrants should not be in the country at all. There should be a border wall. They shouldn't be here at all. But if they're going to be here, how are you going to deal with it? That's the question.
The city has not made timely requests for regulatory changes, has not always promptly shared necessary information with the state, and has not implemented programs in a timely manner, and has not consulted the state before taking certain actions, insisted a letter by Hochul attorney Faith Gay. City officials say the state's response is disingenuous. For example, they say they do submit timely receipts, but the state only reimburses 29% of the city's expenses. Officials insist the state has not adequately stepped up to the plate. The city needs more help, including with resettlement of the migrants around the state. New York City represents 0.05% of the state's land area, yet since last spring, we've managed to provide shelter and services to more than 100,000 asylum seekers, more people than live in the entirety of Albany, and open up over 200 emergency sites to provide shelter, pointed out Deputy Mayor Fabian Levy. This is a state and national crisis, and we need more of this kind of partnership from our state and national partners.
State and national partners. Well, you know what you could do on the federal level is just shut the border off, shut the border down. Don't let all these illegal aliens, asylum seekers, migrants, economic migrants, whatever they want to call themselves, don't let them pour into the country. That's what could happen. But see, people like Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul and all the rest of them, they run the finger point back and forth, but ultimately they're not getting to the core of the problem, which they both support. So it's kind of a food fight between siblings that ultimately are both behaving badly.
Now, the city also insists that many of the sites offered by the state were unusable or inappropriate. Until now, the mayor and governor have tried to project the appearance of partnership and cooperation. That era appears to be over.
Very, very interesting. Now, I have one more video. You see, they are, of course, having an issue housing these migrants. 100,000 people is a lot of people for a city just to take in randomly over a very short period of time. So they have a solution. Well, they have a piece to the solution, okay? Now, they're going to house them in a jail. And this jail just happened to be where somebody very famous got deleted or hung themselves, whatever you want to call it. I'm not really sure what the appropriate thing to say here is. Let's get into it.
It grapples with the ongoing migrant crisis. Officials continue to say all options are on the table.
And the latest option could be the shuttered Manhattan jail where Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. Teresa Priolo is in Midtown with more on this latest possibility, Teresa.
Yeah, Natasha and Steve, the city is saying that they are really out of options, including good ones like using hotels. And so they are mentioning that detention center, the MCC jail. It is a detention center known for being filthy, for being rodent infested. And most recently, it's the place where Jeffrey Epstein took his own life.
Allegedly.
We are just simply out of space. We're out of good spaces. We're out of okay spaces. These are just basically the spaces that are available. And so, all options are on the table.
Outside of the Roosevelt Hotel in Midtown, the Adams administration updates New Yorkers on the ever-growing, ever-concerning migrant crisis. To date, over 100,000 migrants have entered the city, and almost 59,000 are in the city's care. But with space limited, there's talk that the city is considering the federally run Metropolitan Correctional Facility.
Now, at a certain point, like I was saying earlier, they mentioned they need help from the national partners, meaning the federal government, Joe Biden. Maybe they want some more money. They want billions of dollars. I think I read they said they wanted like 15 billion or some kind of crazy amount of money. I think the ultimate goal of all the migrants pouring into New York and other parts of the country, other big liberal cities, is that they're going to plead for the border to be shut down. That is the ultimate issue. If you have a water spigot being turned on and it's not off, it's just a continuous flow of water, and there's a flood as a result, and you're trying to figure out ways to mitigate the water damage, maybe just turn the water off. That'll stop it right there. You could clean up, dry off, and get back to business rather than having the continuous flood that's not going to stop. Because they can open up the jail and fill that up, even though it's rat and rodent infested. You can fill that up, but then you're still going to have more to keep coming. It's never going to end until you end the source, until you stop the source of the problem.
The jail where Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide and where El Chapo was housed.
No decision has been made on that. That's not even a place that we've toured because it's a federal site. We'd have to go into it.
With bars on the windows and steel doors for protection, a federal detention center seems like the exact opposite of what these families were seeking when they made the harrowing trek from their native countries.
Man, and you know what? See, that might be true, but what does that mean? Go back. we're seeing Africans. It's like, come on, man. How'd you get all the way over here? You got some money. If you got enough money to get a plane ticket from Sudan to Mexico, you can get a ticket back. How about that?
These people only came here at a shot at the American dream. They want to work, and, you know, if they had a chance to work, they wouldn't have to even stay in a shelter because, quite honestly, you know, it is not an appropriate site for, there's families living in this hotel. You know, if I was a little kid, I wouldn't be wanting to be in a 150 square foot hotel room.
Well, you know what? We got a lot of homeless, regular, everyday Americans, people that don't break the law, people who are here legally, people who were born here, veterans and everything else on the streets homeless. So they deserve better. They don't deserve to be on the street or in some kind of little small hotel room. But the migrants, so-called migrants, they get all kind of special treatment. How fair is that? Unfair, 100% unfair.
All the time.
The city's also working to open a humanitarian relief center on Randall's Island, and they're at 50% capacity at the Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. The goal is to get them off the streets of New York City, something Avi Bear would like too. He says this crisis has ruined his jewelry business that he has worked decades to build.
We've been in business for 40 years. It's a family-owned business. Since COVID, I tried to hang out to stay in business. For 2 years, I've been paying the rent. Paying my rent, and it's a crazy rent. Paying rent just to say they promised me they're going to reopen the hotel. The Roosevelt Hotel had five-star customers. My clientele is right here. All of them. This is my clientele now.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I understand 100%. I'm going to link to that video and the other video, any articles about what's happening in the description box. But that's very interesting. So New York City, hey, man, y'all got to do something. Y'all got beef between the mayor of the city and the governor of the state. And then there's also beef with the federal government, but you guys not addressing the issue. The government on the federal level is not addressing the issue. The government on the state level, not addressing the issue. And the government on the city level, not addressing the issue. It's the flow of the migrants. Until you stop that, you're going to have these problems. It's not going to end. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about the fight between New York State Governor Kathy Hochul and New York City Mayor Eric Adams? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. It's an easy solution. Stop the illegals from coming in, or the migrants, asylum seekers, whatever they want to. It doesn't really make a difference. People that really shouldn't be here. Look, if you want to come to the country, you want to partake in the American dream, do it the legal way like everybody else does, or the way that it should be done. Don't just bogart your way into the country. That's pretty much what it is. It's not difficult. If you bogart your way into the country and you get sent into some penitentiary, they got rodents and rats, and okay, look, you knew that you were not doing things the 100% right way. You knew you were finessing. You paid a coyote to get smuggled into the country. So you're dealing with a little bit of hardship. It is what it is. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.